Well, folks, here it is, the Econoline versus the Transit. After traveling together through a couple of different states, riding a whole bunch of bikes together, we thought it'd be kind of fun to do a little van off with the old trusty Econoline and my dream van, which is the Transit. So Jeff and I are both pretty conscious, budget-minded folks, so he's got a few tips and techniques on his purchase decision, and I've got an argument for the old trusty 5.4 Econoline. So Jeff, tell us a little bit about your van and how you got it.
Yeah, I guess it's worth pointing out both of our vans are pretty much DIY builds. So this is, even though I like to think that my van is a pretty sick build, it's a budget build for what it is, and everything in there, except for the aluminum rack on the top, I built everything myself. Starting from the top, acquiring this van, if you look on auto trader websites and stuff like that, passenger vans like this, there's tons of them that come off lease. So for example, this van I got with 20,000 miles on it, it had a sticker price of $48,000 and I got it for $28,000. So I basically saved $20,000 for 20,000 miles. And in my mind, even if they never change the oil, that was totally worth it. So then once we dive into the van, this started out as a 15-passenger van, and when I got it, the first thing I did, I literally took it home and within hours stripped the entire inside. I took all the seats out, took the floor out, and then just sat there and thought, what the hell am I doing? I'm completely wrecking my van. But the cool thing is, when you take out the floor, it folds in half and makes a template. So I was able to use that to trace out a new floor. So it started out with 15 seats. Now it has seating for 5. I drove it for about a year with an extra seat here, and I just realized I never used it, so I eventually built a storage system. But I took 2 seats, moved them back, and the cool thing about having the passenger van is I don't really ever full-time van life. We'll get into where I sleep in this van later. It's similar to Drew's. I just wanted to have safe seating for everybody. I wanted to have headliner, air conditioning, heat, and airbags and stuff like that, so nobody's sitting on buckets or anything like that. We have seats that are bolted to the ground. These seats, though, I moved them back about 2 feet. So the original location was over this air vent. So you can see I gave the passengers in the back a ton more seating room. So when you sit back here, tons of room. Even if you're 6'4", you have all the leg room in the world and lots of room to move around. And if you want to get changed, this floor in the front is the original floor. And then once you get back behind the seat, I took out the entire original floor and I put in 3/4 inch marine plywood so that if I wanted to bolt all this stuff down to the back or move things around, I had a super solid platform, because the floor under here is just really, really thin plywood and you can't really do too much to it. So after living with this van for about a year and having a seat right here, I decided to tear that out and make it a totally more useful space. So if I ever do need to take this out, I could pretty easily get it out and bolt back in that seat. But this is by far the most useful thing I put in this van. So I spend 90% of my time before rides right here. So nowadays, this is a spot to put COVID masks, random tools, bike computers, things like that, energy bars. The most used thing in this whole van is this garbage can right here, so you can access it from both sides. And then I have all my tools right here, so if I'm trying to get a shock ready before a ride, need to get my tools, they're all right there. So this is all super, super organized. And then this is where I usually keep all my camera stuff. My van got broken into a year ago, so I want to tell you where I keep everything. But this is where I usually keep my camera stuff and a battery charger up here. So this is just all the stuff that I use on a daily basis. And I got a pump right there.
Nice. So before we move to the back, okay, I want to just let people see, we'll get some more light in here. I want people to see what the cockpit looks like, just in case they don't have a Ford dealer. You got some nice overhead storage here. You got your rear AC controls. How is this thing to drive comfort-wise? I mean, you're 6'4", spacious. Do you get a stiff leg? Cruise control works. The angle of the steering wheel. I mean, how do you feel in here?
Yeah, so comfort-wise, when I chose this van, the reason I went with a Ford Transit over a Dodge, which is also a super available model, the Dodges are a lot smaller in the front cockpit, and I'm 6'4", so I needed to have that room. But then another huge modification that I did, which totally helps me out being as tall as I am, this seat is a pivoting seat, so you can spin it around. And when I put that turntable under here, it raises the seat up about 2 inches. But those turntables are pretty expensive. They're like $400. So I didn't want to do it for the driver's seat. I was trying to keep it on a budget. But when I put that on here, I loved that the seat was higher. So if you take a look at my seat closely, I put a 2" by 2" steel tubular spacer under there. So the seat doesn't pivot, but it raised the whole thing up 2 inches. And then it also gave me space to put that inverter underneath the seat too. So now when I drive, my seat is a little bit higher since I'm so tall. It just gives me better comfort for my legs and stuff like that. But the cockpit is super comfortable and it drives like a car. Like you don't feel like you're driving a van at all.
Okay. And what motor you got in here?
This is just the standard V6. So I'm not like a mega car guy. I know that it's not the EcoBoost. It's just a regular V6 engine, which is pretty typical for this Transit 350.
Okay. Now you've got some pretty beefy all-terrain tires on here.
That was huge. One of my friends told me that the Transit sucked for any kind of adverse weather, and I got it. And the first thing I did was I was going to do a mountain bike trials demo. I attempted to try to pull a trailer up onto just super light grass, and I was peeling out. So I went and got these DF Goodrich all-terrain tires, and it makes all the difference in the world. Those tires turn this car into a 4-season vehicle. Without those tires, the Transits do really suck in the terrible weather. Since it's rear-wheel drive, you throw those tires on there, it makes it super, super useful.
All right, so you got the beefy all-terrains on there. You got this James Burrow rooftop tent. You got your canopy. You got your sweet light bars here that you blinded me with, right?
Yep, and like I said, I did all this stuff myself. So drilling holes into the roof of your van is intimidating when you're not a car person, but I went for it there. This is a Ford Transit off-road light bar. It's Foes Racing, so I thought that was kind of cool since it's a mountain bike company as well. And I even wrapped this hood myself. I had a bunch of vinyl left over from a different job, and I took the hood off, and my son and I put it on the kitchen table, and we attempted to do it, and it actually didn't come out too bad. So,
nice.
Yeah, it looks kind of sweet.
So with these beefy tires, that sail up on top, what kind of mileage are you getting out of this V6?
On this trip right here, my speedometer or odometer was saying 13.3 miles a gallon, which isn't terrible.
And we were going in Tennessee, speed limit's 70, so we were doing 75, 80.
Yeah, we were definitely doing 75, 80, and I think adding that rooftop box definitely totally cuts down on aerodynamics, so that was the killer. Before that, it was probably closer to 14, 15 miles an hour. So that's a sucker. If you don't put that on there, you'll get better gas mileage.
Okay. All right, well, let's see the back and how you store those bikes.
So I made provisions to store some bikes inside, but I like to keep them outside. That's my ideal way to store them. So I have a rack that swings out of the way, allows me to get in the back, and then in the rest of my life, I'm not a very organized person, so my van is the one place that I could actually have complete control over and try to keep organized. So I really try to do that. So a couple other cool DIY storage things. This is actually a shoe holder that you would put in your house, and I cut it shorter and just fastened it to the door. It allows me to keep places to store gloves and stuff like that. And since it's like nylon and netted, it doesn't get gross and it allows stuff to dry out. So I put my pads right there. This is a shower curtain. I could hang that on these hooks right here. And I have a spray box. So this is pretty cool. You fill this thing with water. If you get your bikes dirty or you get your body dirty, you can use this thing to hose off. And when you have the shower curtain you can put up, you can get full natural in the middle of a parking lot and no one would even know. I have a generator. I have an air compressor under here too. So if I need to seat tubeless tires or whatever, the tank is underneath there. So that's stealth out of the way. And then the biggest thing that I did since the last van video that I have online is I put in this lockable tool chest. If you follow me on social media, you might know that last year I had my van completely robbed. So that taught me a lesson. So now this is a fully lockable storage cabinet in here. It gives me places to put everything. Usually I take the key with me, but otherwise I could put all my camera equipment in here and lock it. Different drones and bike parts. I could pretty much fix anything I need to fix on my bike on the road. Helmet storage is super cool. These things are called a Helmetor. I saw these online and I thought they were kind of weird, and I got them, and they work really, really well. You just hang your helmet on there. This is my laundry basket, so I can throw my gross clothes in here when I'm done riding, and then just take it inside and clean it off. Tool stand if I ever need to work on my bikes. I have a Trail Boss toolkit right there if I need to do any trail work. So this has a portable McLeod, a spade, a pickaxe. It all folds up into that cool little packet right there. Different shoes, flat soled shoes, clip shoes, everything goes under here. This is typically where I'll get dressed for a ride, and underneath here is just a big ton of storage, so I could put extra tires, sleeping bags, all that kind of stuff. And then I put all these hooks on the window to allow me to hang my clothes on there. You know, when I go riding, I can hang extra coats or pants or whatever. And then this is where I could store my extra bikes. So it's kind of like an old school bike rack. If I don't want to have my bikes on the back, I could put them in here and then just bungee them so they don't fall out. But it allows me to store some bikes in here, and then it's, you know, it doesn't take up any space if I'm not storing bikes. It's just a little storage wall right there. Here's my refrigerator, a Yeti cooler that'll keep ice clean for days, and then a couple storage bins right here. Like I said, this is all DIY, so this bin right here is where I put my shorts. The top bin is for tops, you know, tops and bottoms, and my Dyson vacuum, so I can keep everything clean.
All right, well, I don't know, I feel like that was a tour into a mansion for lifestyles of the rich and famous. And as we head over here to my rolling junk show after 12 days on the road so far, might not be as impressed, but
this is going to be a real
nevertheless, this is how we roll. Okay, this is real down and dirty. We don't have stuff hidden in the back to make our vans look nice and clean. Okay, this is this is how it goes. So let's see how it is. We are 3,100 miles deep so far on this trip, so let me walk you through this bad boy right here.
Wolfmobile.
So, as a previous owner of an E350, I had a 12-passenger van in the past, and just wanted a little bit more space, but definitely wanted to keep it on a budget. So going up to a 15-passenger van seemed like a really good way to go for us. Again, we were trying to stick to a pretty tight budget when it was time to build this thing out. And while Jeff definitely scored a sweet van for a pretty good deal, that was still about $15,000 more than we paid for this beauty right here. That's right. So I got this van here. It is a 2010 E350. It had 56,000 miles on it, and I got it for $11,000. Took some haggling, took a bit of hard work, but this thing was just sitting up in Valencia, California, outside of LA. I'd say if you're looking for these Econolines, urban areas are going to be great because there's a lot of shuttle companies, dealerships. You know, they used to go through a lot of these vans. If you guys have been anywhere, you know, airport companies, rental companies, everyone used the E350. And that's another reason I'm a huge fan. The 5.4 V8 motor is probably one of the longest used, most bulletproof and reliable motors. If you consider police cars, these vans, F-150 pickup trucks, there's parts and there are millions of miles of experience behind them. Being that this is the E350, it's kind of got that burly front end. I had my buddy Morgan up in Bend, Oregon, hook it up with a nice light bar. We did a LED headlight upgrade kit, so that way when it's late at night and I'm cruising down the highway, I've got plenty of visibility and can see what's coming down the road ahead of me. I've got a little bit of a lead foot, I'm sorry to say, but you know, at least I can see farther if I'm going faster. So moving on down the road here, we'll get into the passenger quarters. Now this bench seat was a carryover from my last van. It was actually an RV conversion bench. I put this on here because I have a tendency of picking up these real dirt bags and letting them in the back of my van. So rather than stain a nice seat, I put this easily washable blanket on here. And so one of the things that's really cool about this bench seat, being that it's out of an RV conversion, is that it folds flat into a bed. So although I do have this CVT clamshell automated pop-up tent, which is really neat, if I'm just stopping on the side of the road at like a rest stop, or you know, gonna get up early the next morning and go, or if I've got more people and I want to stay there and they can stay here, this bench will fold forward and flat, and it'll be essentially a bed big enough, you know, you could fit yourself and your lady friend if you're out on a trip comfortably. It's been done. So definitely like the van conversion seats. They're a lot cheaper if you can find them used or from like an RV shop instead of like these high-end custom van builders. It'll save you a lot of money. The downside is you'll have to do a little bit of work yourself to make seat belts work. So that's something that's really got me thinking, and I like about Jeff's van. They've got full restraints, airbags, all that. This thing, we're kind of relegated to some 70s style lap belts and crossed fingers. So, as you can see in the rest of the van here, I left the stock headliner up front. Oh, you like my hat holder,
Yeah.
Jeff? Is that cool or what?
Tell us about that.
So that there's a cowboy hat holder.
That actually is a real cowboy hat holder.
It sure is, dude.
Oh shit! I thought like
No,
that's
let me
a
show you.
legit cowboy hat holder.
Check this thing out, dude, like that. Boom, there you go. That just bolts right up to the ceiling, holds your hat. Now, you never know when you're gonna need a cowboy hat, right? Like, let's just say you've got a friend who's got a Chevy or a Sprinter, and he breaks down on the side of the road, and you're standing out in the sun waiting for a tow truck. You want to have a cowboy hat.
Where
so
do you
can
buy a
protect your
cowboy
neck.
hat holder?
If you
That's
look-
like a real thing.
Oh, yeah. Real deal. Yeah, you know, if you look, it's kind of like, you know, it's right next to the gun rack section in a mail order catalog. But yeah, you never know, right? Like Jeff, I also opted to go for the passenger van model. I like having some windows. I like having more of a finished interior. It takes less time and less build effort. So as you can see over here, right, like I've maintained stock accessories, right? Everything's closed off. I got cup holders, I got cigarette lighters, even back there. I mean, your pillars are covered. So it just kind of minimizes a little bit of work if you don't want to go deep into that full custom van build. So right here behind this door, I've got a power inverter, which is absolutely awesome, and having additional power on board is huge. Right now, for example, I have a fridge, a couple of GoPros, and an e-bike charging up in the back. And being able to do that, especially if you're on the road a lot, keeping laptops, camera gear, cell phones, all that stuff charged is really cool. So something I really suggest. Another cool thing is with these Econolines for so many years being ambulances, there's a lot of really cool accessories. So if you notice under here, there's a secondary battery. And basically what that's for is, you know, being charged and running that inverter. You know, ambulances have a lot of onboard equipment, and this was like an ambulance mount that that they sell online. It was like $90, and you just mount it up here to the frame, ground it, run it off the alternator. So now I'm charging 2 batteries, can run my inverter, and got plenty of juice to spare, so I don't have to worry about draining the starter battery if I'm somewhere overnight and I got my LEDs and my computer and fridge and all that stuff going. So definitely a cool thing to look into. So as far as inside the van storage, I'm a huge fan of keeping bikes in here. What I did was I got some L-Track from a freight company, secured that down, and then I customized these Rocky Mounts bike holders. I kind of drilled out the base plates of them to work with these kind of quick detach L-Track mounts. And so basically what I can do now is, as you can see right now, I've got 2 bikes in here and my dirt bike, or a little play bike, I should say. And what I can do is I can fit up to 5 bikes in here on these Rocky Mounts, depending on my needs and what I'm doing. So because the system's on this track here, and I've got these mounts, I can actually, it takes a little bit of work. Sometimes I need a little mallet and tap them back and forth, but I can slide these racks, and I've got 2 rows, so that way I can kind of alternate, put one forward and back. That way I can have the handlebars at slightly different spacing. And again, if I need to put some big stuff in, or like a fridge and a dirt bike, I can slide the bikes to one end, keep the big stuff on the other, vice versa. So it's a pretty cool setup. To get 5 bikes in here, I'll usually have to like maybe take pedals off, and at least on 1 or 2 of the bikes loosen the stem so I can have the bars flat. Makes life a lot easier for them coming in and out. Onboard storage is definitely something that's important for vanners. If you've had one, or if you're just a mountain biker, you know, you tend to accumulate a lot of stuff, and being able to kind of have the essentials when you need them, where you need them, is important. Even with this organization, I still struggle sometimes because there's just always stuff coming and going. In my research, it found that like just van stuff is so expensive and overpriced. My last van, I ended up building a lot of stuff myself, and it worked great for 3 or 4 years, but just after being on the road and bouncing down dirt, gravel, shuttle roads, stuff starts working its way apart. So I thought it'd be worthwhile to spend a little bit of money, but not van money. So I did some research and found a company that outfits like electrical and trades vans, and this thing was super cheap. I think it was like, I don't know, maybe $180 or $280, and it bolts right in on the top and bottom, super secure. It's got dividers on top, big open bay in here. It's all metal, so you can, any magnetized items will stick nicely. Then you just get yourself some cheap little Tupperware bins from the store, and you can kind of organize things. Again, I'm 12 days in, so it's getting a little messy. Another awesome thing is that you've got a lockable compartment down here, so you can put any larger items, safe items, anything that you want to have locked up when you're out on the trail in there. Definitely an important feature. And again, way cheaper than anything that's certified van life. So what I did with the outsides, the bottom panels, everything to keep it a little bit quieter is I got some marine grade carpeting and some really strong spray adhesive. So front and backs, underneath, at the bottom of all the shelves, carpeted all that. So if there were like loose Allen wrenches, bolts, anything like that, it wouldn't make a ton of racket. From there, anywhere that I peeled back stock parts, I used that marine carpet again. Spray 77, or no, what is it? It was like some sort of a 3M spray 90, it might have been the strongest I could get. Spray it on there, cut it, it stretches out real nice and can form around any kind of contours and molds. So definitely worth getting. Oh, another nice tip, I guess, is dynamatting stuff. Dynamat as much as you can. I did the bottoms of these, inside the doors, everything I had under panels. If you can dynamat stuff, it will not bounce around, vibrate, echo. Definitely a worthwhile investment. Something I get asked a lot about here is the ceiling in this van. Being that, again, it was a passenger van like Jeff's, it had the air-conditioned ducting, it had the finished headliner, all that stuff, and by taking that out, I was able to gain 3.25 inches in height, which is a big deal. I can fit a full-size dirt bike in here. I could in my old van with the headliner still in, but it gets in easier now. I've got more space. It also allowed me to put some insulation up above this. This is just shiplap, like cheap shiplap siding I got at the Home Depot. Not all that expensive. It's great, kind of clicks in and then screwed into the beams that kind of go over the ceiling of the van. It smelled really good for the first month or two. That's kind of worn away, but smooth, looks good, and it really wasn't all that spendy. So definitely one of my favorite pieces about the van. I at some point would like to build maybe some shelves, some organizational shelves in here, get a little tower. That's on my to-do list. Unfortunately, that requires time, and I don't have a lot of that. So for now, this area gets to be a little bit messy from time to time. So this here is the rear AC and heat vent. So this used to be what went up into the ducting that kind of heated and cooled the back area of the van. I left that in there because I still wanted to be able to have climate control in the back. If I'm going somewhere super cold, it's nice to be able to, one, warm up the bikes, get them nice and hot so that the suspension isn't super harsh. More importantly, I can put like my helmet, my shoes, my knee pads in here, get them nice and warm so that they're not all stiff and cold when I get to the trailhead. And when it's super hot, if I'm changing, I'll sit on that wheel well over there. I can have the AC running and just kind of blast cold air into the back and keep everything nice and cool. I don't always have this in here. If I do, I don't typically have a dirt bike, and I'll put this over against the corner, but this is my CSI fridge freezer combo. Again, being on the budget, my buddy Morgan, Audio Works, Bend, Oregon, thank you, bud, hooked me up with this thing. Had to trade him some bike parts, but well worth it. He said this thing is basically like a total ARB replica, rip-off, whatever, I don't know what you want to call it, but it doesn't cost nearly as much as an ARB. So CSI black ice, insulated blanket, totally worth it. You don't need to spend $700-800 for a fridge or whatever these things go for. So that, in a nutshell, is the tour of the old trusty van, and she does fine. I gotta say, I don't have a ton of money into this thing. You know, 11 grand for the purchase price. Spent some money on the wrap. Was able to find some pretty affordable alternatives to storage and bike rack solutions that do the job and don't cost a ton of money. So I get about, depending on how I'm driving, like terrain-wise, I can get anywhere from 12 to 14.5 miles to the gallon with this tent on top and some fairly aggressive tires. If I drive much more conservatively, which I try not to do because it just takes so long to get places, you can get a little bit better, but if you're pushing this thing 75 to 80, you can probably count on about 13 miles to the gallon, which, you know, isn't too much worse than Jeff's van and is, I don't know, about 10 grand cheaper. So I don't know if I'm gonna spend 10 grand in fuel, but I will say having the ability to stand up like Jeff does is a huge benefit. And having spent all this time on the road in a pretty confined space, showing up and seeing Jeff in that thing, getting comfortably dressed, all neatly organized, it does make me think it might be time to do the upgrade. What do you guys think? I don't know. Get rid of the E350. They look really good, but
I like the aesthetics of the E350, but this is pretty convenient. So
practicality may win, guys. I don't know. This thing is sweet. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching. If you don't already follow the Trail Boss, Mr. Jeff Lenoski, make sure you go check out his channel. He's got not only a cool van, but a ton of amazing skills on a bike, and will definitely teach you guys a few things to improve your riding out on the trail. So thanks for coming along for the ride, Jeff, riding with us in some cool spots, and let's go shred some trail.
let's do it.
All right. Boom.